Mr. Bailey, thank you so much for coming down. We really appreciate the time.
Faith, thanks for having me.
So, you won this new position that you're in, 53% of the vote in a runoff against former Rome City Commissioner Wendy Davis. You are an attorney, a former prosecutor. You ran for Attorney General and for Lieutenant Governor. A lot of people might know the name Charley Bailey, but for those who do not, what do you stand for?
I stand for every person in this state being able to live a life that is worthy of their own dignity, and having a government that recognizes that and fights for that every day and fights for their justice every day.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Bailey. What do you say to those who might cast some doubt over your ability to help Democrats have successful campaigns against Republicans when you lost both of your campaigns for AG and Lieutenant Governor?
Well, I would say in 2018, when I was the AG nominee, I got 49% running against an incumbent. Chris Carr didn't give me 49% of the office, but we were able to do that and have that close margin because I know how to run campaigns that get right to the heart of the issue and cut through the noise, speak in a very real, plain-spoken way about the issues that affect people's day-to-day lives. For the same reason I had the closest margin of any Democrat not named Raphael Warnock in 2022 as the Lieutenant Governor nominee. Because I understand that the vast majority of Georgians get up every day and they're worried about, is my kid safe? How are they doing in school? If I get a hospital bill, can I pay it? And whether you are a candidate or in my role now as chair of the Democratic Party, you've got to be focused, and I am going to be focused, and we are going to be focused like a laser on those issues and pointing out to the people of Georgia the Republican choices that have made those things harder and what we are going to do if they trust us with their votes to have a government that is going to pass a tax code that rewards work and not wealth, that actually is going to invest in public safety and in public education, and expand Medicaid so that folks don't have these rising health care costs and hospitals closing.
You are walking into a party that has a lot of work to do. I want to reference an AJC UGA poll kind of citing and getting a sense of how people are trusting Democrats right now. What do they feel about the party? That poll showed 57.5% of Georgia voters had an unfavorable impression of the Democratic Party, including 34.5% of people who consider themselves liberal and 30% of people who voted for Vice President Kamala Harris. This was a 3.1 margin of error survey of 1,000 voters in Georgia. How do you move forward from that?
Well, I'll also point out in that poll, Republicans were very unpopular as well. The truth is that the people of Georgia, much like people around the country, are distrustful of both parties right now. And in Georgia, I will say the people of this state have full cause to be angry with the situation that they are in. But the Republicans have been in charge for 22 years, not Democrats. And, people are busy, right? They're working jobs, they're going to church or temple, they're taking their kids to soccer practice, baseball practice, and the rest. It is our job as the Democratic Party to make sure they understand who to blame for the situation they find themselves in. Because here's the reality. For the last 12 years, 12 hospitals have closed in our state. Of the 30 rural hospitals that are open right now, 18 are at risk of closure. Every metric that we use to measure our kids' educational opportunity and educational attainment, we're last, second to last, third to last. And we've got a tax code that the Republicans under the Gold Dome have written that rewards billionaires, big corporations, and whoever the latest lobbyist is to buy somebody a steak and a bourbon. And so people got cause to be angry about that, but all of these people, whether they be Democrats, independents, Republicans, what they want out of the Democratic Party is to see some fight, to see that we recognize that they ought to be angry, that we understand that. We understand what they're going through, and we give voice to that, and we tell them who to blame. Because it ain't the Democrats that have been in charge for 22 years. It's the Republicans. These are the choices of the people in power. But people aren't just going to know that, because like we said, they're busy. So it's on us to make sure they know that, make sure they know who to blame for the difficulties, that they face, the fact that the American dream is less attainable in Georgia now than it was 20 years ago, and tell them what we are going to do about it. That if they trust us with their vote and we get in power, that we're going to change this tax code so that it rewards working people, that we're going to actually fully fund education, which the Republicans have not done, that we're going to expand Medicaid so that we can keep hospitals open, reopen others, hire more nurses and more doctors. And let me say a little piece about that. The people of Georgia have been paying for Medicaid expansion for now 14 years, billions of dollars at this point, of our tax dollars. We're paying for it, but we're just paying for our brothers and sisters in Indiana and Ohio and California and New York to have it. But the Republicans are refusing our people to get that help. That, by the way, it's not theirs to refuse. The people of Georgia have paid for this with their taxes, but they're refusing that help. But we have got to show this is what we are going to do, that we are actually going to fund a GBI so we don't have years-long backlog in the testing of rape kits, that we're going to fund the GBI and hire the technicians and the scientists so they can test this ballistics, that right now we have 10, 11-month backlogs. These are the consequences of Republican leadership. And so what you're seeing in those poll numbers is they want to see a Democratic Party point this stuff out and prosecute the case against the Republicans and on behalf of the people of Georgia. And that's what we're going to do.
You mentioned an interesting word there, which was fight. We've seen recent town halls, including Senator Ossoff's town hall, Congresswoman Nikema Williams, their constituents angry, believing that Democrats are not doing enough. Of course, that's on the national level, as well as statewide. Have Democrats lost their fight in Georgia?
No, I wouldn't say we've lost our fight, and I think we've got wonderful public servants, and the two senators are, at the top of the list. But I'll speak from my role as chair of the Democratic Party is to show that fight. If it was, I'll just say this, if it was sufficient what we have been doing, if what we had been doing is sufficient, we wouldn't have those poll numbers. So it's clearly not sufficient. We don't need to spend a tremendous amount of time looking backwards, but going forwards, and that's the pertinent question to me, is what are we going to do? We're going to show that. I'm a former prosecutor, trial lawyer. My entire career I've spent using evidence to present a case to somebody, whether that's a jury, a judge, an insurance company, and say, hey, I need you to do X, Y, or Z. That's what we're going to do here. We're going to use the evidence. We're going to present that to the jury that is the people of Georgia and say, with this information, I urge you to make this decision, that decision being electing Democrats. Not because you just want us to win, but because it makes a difference in your lives, your opportunity, and your children's lives and their opportunity.
It sounds to me that you have a plan to work on the messaging from the Georgia Democratic Party. Would you say that that is something that Georgia Democrats and your predecessor, Congresswoman Nikema Williams, got wrong in the 2024 election, that messaging?
Again, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time looking back. I think 2024, there's a lot of, we've got to be honest that we're dealing with changes that were like price increases, interest rate increases that many of us have not seen in our lifetimes. Many voters that voted had never seen anything like that. We got to go back 40, 45 years before we see a shock to the system like that. And so we had a Democratic president. And a lot of what happened ain't more complicated than that. The people in charge get the blame when something really disruptive happens. And I think that's part of the story. But going forward, again, all we can do is make the best decisions we can with the evidence we have at any given time. And right now, the data is telling us, anecdotal and empirical, that people want to know what we stand for and what we are going to fight for. And that's what we are going to do. There's going to be no question. I'm not guaranteeing we're going to win every race we get into. That ain't politics. That ain't life. But we're going to win more than we lose. And even the ones we lose, they're going to have to walk over broken glass to get those wins from us. And what will not be said is that the Democratic Party of Georgia did not have a clear message communicated with millions of dollars about what's at stake, and we're going to fight for every vote and every seat we can get.
So would you say that you are taking this role as almost a clean slate? Are you bringing anything over from your predecessor? Any notes from her, anything like that, or are you just starting clean?
All the work that's been done to this point, none of us start in a vacuum. And there's a lot of great work that Congresswoman Williams has done and other leaders in this party have done. So we all build on all that, right? None of us come into this world, whether you come into a job like this or another job and say, I am sui generis, I do everything. Like, that's not the way it works. There's a lot of wonderful work. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had the gains that we've had, So we've done a lot of good work. We're at where we are. We got to go forward. And we got to, make improvements. And the things that I'm describing about our focus in terms of messaging and values and everything, that's where we're going to go. The other piece of this is we got to raise a tremendous amount of money. I can say this stuff to you all day long, and I can sit on my front porch and talk to who everybody wants to talk to me. But in the 8th largest state in the country, to get a message out, we got to raise a tremendous amount of money, and I'm going to do that. And we're going to be aggressive in investing that directly in races to flip seats. So that's my job going forward. But of course, this isn't the beginning of time. There's a lot of work that's been done, and it's good work to get us to where we are.
That you plan to build on then.
Exactly.
Well, this segues into a good moment for these upcoming elections. Let's start with the Georgia Public Service Commissioner elections that's coming up. We know that it's all Republicans holding those seats right now, overseeing electricity and utility rates, which a lot of people, they have to pay up, especially if those rates are raising. The first election in 5 years. What is your plan to try to put a Democrat in there?
Well, first, we want to make sure everybody knows that there's a primary coming up, next month, and so we need folks to get out. And it's a weird time to have a PSC race, so we want to make sure people come out for the primary and vote for the person of their choice. We have one; they don't. And then, we're going to communicate clearly in going into the fall, where the general election is going to be, what's at stake. Do you want somebody at the Public Service Commission, which is what's been there, that is making decisions at the behest of big corporations and their ability to make money? Or are they making decisions, as the Democrats will, based on the what is best for the people of Georgia? In the 5 years since we last had an election, on average, the monthly bill for Georgians for their utilities has gone up $40 on average. So the choice is clear in November. Who do you want making that decision? Somebody thinking about you and your family, or somebody thinking about the bottom lines of a corporation? And I would submit that it is better for the people of Georgia to have somebody focused on them and not focused on that bottom line. The Democrat being the one focused on them, the Republicans being the one showing through their actions they're more focused on the bottom line of a corporation.
I want to ask you about some races coming up in 2026. Big news, Governor Kemp says he will not be running for the Senate against Senator Jon Ossoff. I want to read part of a statement that you sent me after this news came out. You said, for the next year, GOP Senate hopefuls led by wannabe Senator Marjorie Taylor Greene will squabble and grovel for Trump's favor as they seek the honor of losing decisively to the strongest incumbent swing state Democrat up for re-election in the Senate. That, I would say, is a very confident part of your statement. You seem like a very confident guy even throughout this interview. But how strong is Ossoff statewide to keep that seat? We know that every Republican in Georgia and Republicans across the nation. They are looking at this race. They want to flip that seat. They're going to bring a lot of money. They're going to bring a lot of power. Sure. How strong is he statewide? He's
very strong. And if you, again, look at the data, you don't have to take my word. I mean, his approval rating is very high. Even in that AJC poll, it sits at 48 or 49%, with another 20% without saying not enough information. That's a lot of room to grow as well. And Senator Ossoff just set records. It was 11 million or something like that he raised in the first quarter. I'm not sure on the exact record, but I'm told there's some sort of record for an off-year first quarter. That is a representation of the strength, and that is based on the work that he's done for the people of Georgia. You know, to try to lower prices, to benefit companies open in Georgia through the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS Act. Famously, a lot of these Republicans like to. Probably more than half of the congressional delegation is going to run for this now, the Republican congressional delegation, and they love to say negative things about those pieces of legislation. Then they show up at all the ribbon cuttings because they know the impact on people's lives. Where they didn't do it, they voted against those things. John Ossoff made sure they became law for the people of Georgia. So that approval rating, again, empirical data, is based on his work that he's been doing for the people of Georgia. And in contrast to that, you've got this group of, motley group of fools that is racing to defend raising taxes on working people through these tariffs, cutting Head Start, firing people from the CDC, cutting Medicare and Medicaid. All the while, they support the destruction of due process in this country. As you know, and we talked about it, I'm a former prosecutor. I've put a lot of people in prison, a lot of dangerous people, and I did that with evidence. The idea that you snatch somebody off the street, haul them off to God knows where without evidence or without a lawyer is about the most un-American thing in the world. They are defending all of that, and in that same poll you cited earlier, all of the things I just mentioned have one thing in common. Well, two things in common. They're incredibly unpopular, and they're backed by all those Republicans and Donald Trump. So why I'm confident is when that contrast is put to the people of Georgia, they're going to reject that right-wing politics that favors big corporations and billionaires and hurts working people and an American way of life. And that's why Senator Ossoff is going to win decisively next year.
Can you give me any specifics that you all plan to do? I know you cited a couple of reasons why people should or you believe that they will go to him, but specifically when it comes to boots on the ground campaigning, fundraising, what role is the Democratic Party of Georgia going to play in this race for Ossoff?
Well, we're going to make sure we're going to build up our infrastructure across the state so that we make sure we've got organizing in all 159 counties. So on the ground, we've got all the organizing training so that our leaders through our county parties and others have every tool they need to make the argument to the people of their community and in their neighborhoods. The argument I just made. But we're also going to, there's going to be a lot of money. We're going to raise a lot of money. Senator Ossoff's going to raise a lot of money. That's going to go to fund those organizing efforts and also fund the communication strategy. That is going to be TV, radio, mail, digital, all of the above, so that everybody voting next year understands clearly the stakes and the contrast I laid out. All of that takes a lot of money, and I'm going to do my part to raise a tremendous amount of money, then not just for Senator Ossoff's race, but for all the other races that we have, to include the General Assembly. We're going to invest directly in seats to flip seats from Republican to Democratic and close that gap in the State House and State Senate.
Another race I'm sure that you'll be paying very close attention to and potentially funding as well is the governor's race that's coming up. No Democrat, as we know, has held office since Governor Roy Barnes. We know that Jason Estevez has said that he's running. Former Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms is laying the groundwork to run. Who would you like to see as Georgia's next governor?
You're a clever reporter, and it's a great question. Of course, as you know, I don't have a role in saying who I'd rather. That's for the people that vote in the primary for for our voters to decide. What I do know is that we're going to have a multitude of really qualified candidates that are going to be making the similar kind of case that I've been making today about what Democratic leadership will bring for the people of Georgia. We're going to have a spirited primary, and I've been through those. Iron sharpens iron. They're going to come out strong. They're going to come out well-funded. And then we're going to do everything we can do to make sure whoever the nominee is wins next November.
My last question for you, Mr. Bailey. For those who this might be the first time that they are hearing a conversation with you in depth. You have the job now, right? Why are you the best person for this job, and why should Georgia, the residents of Georgia, the voters of Georgia, trust Democrats?
Well, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm the only person that can do this job. That is not the case. There's plenty of qualified people, but I'm the one that has the job. And what I can say is everything that I've said here today, it comes from a place of, my mother kind of raised me on stories of like Bobby Kennedy's 1968 campaign. My politics is based in the idea that every person has dignity. Every human being's got human dignity. And that means they deserve the opportunity to live the best life they can, and the opportunity to leave for their kids a little bit better life than they had. And the government's responsibility is to make sure that opportunity exists for every Georgian to do that. That's what drives my politics. That's why I'm so passionate about electing Democrats, because I know that if we get more Democrats in office, that opportunity is more attainable for all of those people. That's where I come from. That's my heart. And that'll be played out in the work that I do as chair of the Democratic Party of Georgia.
Mr. Bailey, thank you so much for coming down. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Faith.